Hi, good morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Want to say thank you for joining us today at our special event at eCentry. We are super excited to have you here, and we are really excited. The topic for today is why your API is called to your business transformation. And once again, we want to say thank you for joining. Thank you for joining us, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. My name is Osita Okoli, and I work for eCentry. And in leading the conversation today around your API, we have our friend from Achios that will also be discussing on that. I'll be introducing them in a moment, but before I do, I just want to tell you something briefly about our company called eCentry. First of all, I'm proud to announce that eCentry was rather the first indigenous SOC company in Nigeria. I believe we deserve a round of applause for that. Yes, I repeat, we are the first indigenous SOC company in Nigeria, and we are always proud to announce that. So eCentry is a managed security service provider, and our focus is on continuous security monitoring, threat hunting, web application, firewall, penetration testing, vulnerability assessment, endpoint security analysis. We analyze incidents response. We do a lot of digital forensic, and we focus on cybersecurity compliance. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm super excited today to have everyone on the call today. And we'll be discussing once again around your API. We'll be discussing around your API with our partners, Achios. Now, from the eCentry side, I'll be introducing my colleague and friend, Bolagbo. I'll be introducing him. Then after I do that, before he speaks in a moment, I'll be calling on my friends from Achios to introduce themselves. But let me do a short introduction of my colleague and friend, Bolagbo. Bolagbo is a business information system and security expert architect with over a decade of experience in design, development, and management of information security system and enterprise infrastructure. He is the technology strategist and business executive with a hands-on enterprise in design and delivery of high-performance information security and business process improvement solution to address complex business problems. Based on his expertise in running successful information security programs, strategic awareness, and extensive grasp in real business of IT, Bolagbo has been able to increase the profitability and business value of some of the top electronic payment firms and financial institutions in Nigeria. Bolagbo holds several degrees in the information security space, and I'm proud to say that he is also the country manager of eCentry. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to say thank you once again for joining this call, and at this point, I'm going to be calling my friend Solomon Kobani from Achios to introduce himself and his company. Solomon, how are you doing? Or Solo rather. Solo, how are you doing?
I'm good, thanks, Osita. Thank you for having us, and we are very excited about our partnership with eCentry.
Thank you. So please, over to you, Solo.
Sure. So my name is Solo Kombani. I look after operations at Oculus. So Oculus was founded 4 years ago, and really what sparked the genesis of the company was our CEO was working at PwC here in Melbourne, Australia, doing a lot of consulting in the cyberspace with the Victorian Police, with corporates, with NGOs and so forth, and really started to notice an exponential growth in the adoption of APIs. But being a Cyberman, he also noticed that on the security side, there wasn't a whole lot happening. So in terms of trends, the internet was quickly moving from HTML to APIs. So we would say that the modern business today, what we call a modern startup, is usually dependent on at least a number of APIs, at least 5 to 10 APIs to just provision services, stay digital, and stay in the market, right? So so looking at that, we looked at how much APIs were being used and how little there was available to effectively secure APIs. So we're not talking just about meeting compliance and regulatory needs, but we're talking about what it is that business leaders really need, which is the peace of mind that my business is protected, my team have a task that they can achieve in terms of protecting the business and so forth. So the area that we chose to add our contribution to was in the API space. And this is what we continue to do today. So I'm here today with my distinguished colleague, Dr. Alberto Torres, who looks after our product, our tech, and you'll be hearing from him a little bit later. But that's the introduction I'd give to Oculus. We're based out here in Australia, but we also service clients in Singapore, in Australia, and very, very excited to be bringing our solution in partnership with eSentry into Nigeria and beyond. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Solo Kobani. I pronounced your name properly this time, right?
Perfectly, like an African.
Amazing. So, ladies and gentlemen, at this point, I'm going to be calling on Bolabo to start the event for today. Bolabo, how you doing? Hello, Bolabo.
Yes. Hi, Osita. I'm doing good.
Yeah. So we are eager to hear from you, and we're also eager to hear from Alberto.
The duck. Okay. So good morning, everyone. At least in Nigeria and some parts of Africa. And good day to our viewers, people listening in from other parts of the world. So why are we here today? We've over time we've done some research and we've observed the adoption of APIs to our everyday life, especially from a business perspective. And based on how we position ourselves at eSentry as a trusted security advisor, we've discovered that based on the adoption, there's a sprawl, effective utilization of APIs in some areas. And we think, organizations need to focus now on securing their APIs. So first is to identify the fact that yes, APIs are here to stay and the kind of impact they have across board, being your personal life, your business, and all organizations use APIs, social organizations, financial institutions, service providers, even in the health sector. So we use one form of API or the other. So there's a lot of focus now on, API being like the most prominent attack vector. So what we are looking here today is talking about APIs, how to manage your APIs, how to manage your relationships with partners that you share APIs with and how you utilize APIs, how to secure your APIs, So we'll be starting with, how API is core to the success of digital transformation and your business in its entirety. So we'll start by, defining what APIs are. So an API is an application programming interface, and, typically what it means is it brings every type of product or service from a backend system to an application or a mobile app or an interface for you to be able to use. So almost every piece of software built today uses an API or is an API in itself. So literally you'll be surprised the kind of applications or services you've been using and you literally have been leveraging on an API, but you didn't know about it. So, and by the time we go through some examples on use cases, you would see that everybody literally uses an API. So, and over time, the API development had increased astronomically in the past few years, especially due to the digital transformation drive by a lot of organizations. Today, you see companies that start up as digital, nothing on premise. You don't even know where the offices are, but you can connect to them on the web platforms, or you download the mobile app, you make purchases, you subscribe to services, you're leveraging a mobile app, and you're capturing customer details, or you as a customer, you're putting your details on some platforms. And I think it's very critical that these details, these transactions are done in a secure manner, which is why we are talking about API security. So the growth is making API security a top concern. And we think it's critical that if you look at the history of APIs from when it started, from the remote procedure call periods to electronic data interchange to enterprise application integrations, like, for example, the ESB for the technical environment is an example of leveraging APIs through now service-oriented architecture, SOA, to what we now popularly known as microservices, which is for REST and for SOAP REST, and now GraphQL. So typically, knowing all these technologies, leveraging it, a digital business would always rush, go to market, focus on generating revenue, providing service. But what is really critical is how do you keep your business running? How do you keep services available? That is by ensuring these APIs that you use to present the services are secure. So just fun facts, but just for information, APIs are the new apps. Absolutely every service, there is no service that is in use today that doesn't leverage APIs, from social. So let me give you an example. The first set of applications that you said that went really commercial, the Salesforce for organizations that leverage Salesforce for customer services, eBay, Amazon for all of us that make purchases or subscribe to services on Amazon, to social media, Instagram, Twitter, marketplaces online. All the services are brought to us leveraging APIs. And with these APIs, we key in our information, we key in transactional information, card order details, we key in our personal details to be able to subscribe to service and leverage. And these are very critical data that need to be secure while at rest, while being transmitted, while being exchanged and shared. So this is why we're bringing all this attention to securing APIs. So 83% of web traffic are API calls. Absolutely. So you log on to that mobile app. So let me tell you a very good example. So if you look at it today, you leverage about maybe 8 apps. And you notice some apps will tell you that instead of creating a new username and password, you can leverage your Facebook username and password, or you can leverage your Gmail or Google username and password. At least I for sure know I do that for my Google account. I use my Google account to log into multiple services because on my mind, I'm like, why create a new one? So with that ease, that convenience, the seamless interaction between this application is made possible by APIs and API calls. That being said, based on the benefits of APIs, 40% of attack surface is in form of API instead of web user interface. So it might be a web platform, you might be on the internet, but that attack surface is actually an API. And so protecting that web platform alone is not good enough to secure information or to secure your service from being breached. But thinking and processing and having a strategy about securing your APIs actually would help you be more secure. And yes, this is inevitable. By 2022, and I think this is even top on Gartner's agenda, that the APIs will be #1 attack vector by 2022. So we're on that journey now. So this is us preparing, this is us putting the information out, this is us creating the awareness and helping us be more proactive and planning to ensure, first, we understand our API landscape, we can define the API economy as we'll get into it the next week, and also be able to put security around it. Okay. So yeah, so the API economy. So it's a bit of a buzzword. You hear it if you listen to some seminar or some conference or generally when we're trying to sell. So we talk about API economy, but the truth is that what exactly is your API economy? It's your strategy, it's your model, it's your approach of exposing your services, specific information to a partner or to your clientele, to your customers, and the structure put in place, the channels that are defined, the kind of data that you've put out there, how the data can be accessed, the limitations you've put in ensuring you don't share too much information, and also your strategy in ensuring customer information is secure. APIs and digital transformation. So it's called to digital transformation strategy. So for you to succeed in your digital transformation strategy, you need to be able to package your services, your competencies, the assets you have, and be able to set it in modular pieces, and be able to present leveraging, the web and the APIs to share, with your partners and with your customers. And, today API has moved from just selling or putting the business out to even ensuring your back office is effective, digitalizing your internal processes, employee management assets, machine-to-machine communication internally, your connections to third parties, your partners, and supply chain generally. So digital transformation, digital is here to stay. So the API is here to stay. The best thing you can do is ensure you've secured your APIs and you can manage your APIs effectively. So yeah, API is the #1 attack vector. As far as we're concerned, that is the thinking now. So now is a good time to start thinking, structuring, managing your APIs effectively, and the API security issues can be broken down into APIs can be used to expose sensitive data, which is major issues with breaches. API communications can be intercepted, man-in-the-middle attack, and which would now lead to either, transferring or divulging unnecessary information or taking over a particular transaction. Then backend services can be taken offline, and it would lead to a denial of service, which would impact the reputation of the organization, would lead to a denial of service to your clientele, which would eventually lead to loss of revenue. All this are things you don't want. And all this you can prevent if you start considering securing your APIs. So we'll look at some case studies. So the Venmo breach, the breach exposed about 200 million transactions, and they were scraped, from the description field, of the API. And this was a lot of information, a lot of customer information. There's a lot the bad actor can do with all the details that was scraped from the Venmo breach. Though Venmo came through that based on their public policy that it was not a breach and they're supposed to put information out there. But now you'll be looking at your partners, you will be looking at yourself as an organization. What type of information do you want to put out there? Do you want to give this kind of excuse that Venmo has given? Or do we want to secure customer information, secure customer transactions, and ensure your business's reputation is not impacted negatively? So having this strategy, having this plan helps us thrive. Another case study is for the T-Mobile breach. T-Mobile is one of the biggest telcos in the United States. And so with the breach, they actually agreed that their APIs were not properly secured. And this about 2 million customer details was exfiltrated, was moved out. And it involved name, billing, zip code, phone number, email address, account number. There's a lot you can do with all this information. Customer, it would lead to loss of revenue from their side. Customer can lose also monies based on the details, account numbers that have been done. Bad actors can steal money from the customer, can do a lot of things with the customer information that is put out there. So this also you don't want to do, because then you now need to work on reputation management, you face a lot of lawsuits, you need to pay customers back. And by the time you look at the cost of this loss compared to putting a strategy in place and having a structure in place to secure your APIs, you would know is a worthy investment. And then our last case study is one of the biggest social markets in India. And the data points for this breach was about the 100 million users. So India is the country with one of the largest population, India and China. And the kind of information that was exposed involved date of birth, email, phone number, even pictures of customers. And this is massive, and it was really serious. Everything was leaked. And the Just Dial breach is a very good example of where today, which is happening today, the business is always, the business angle of a service is always priority, and the security of that business is overlooked. And most organizations always need to hit an inflection point where there's loss of data or an exposure of critical information before they take, securing, their infrastructure seriously. So this is why we need to take securing our APIs really, really, really serious to prevent these exposures, to prevent this kind of issues, and then keep service running and continuously available. So that is my bit of this presentation. So we'll be moving on to the next step, where our partners from Oculus will be telling us, showing us how we can secure our APIs, letting us know about the possible threats and how we can prevent that. So I would be handing down to Dr. Alberto to take over from me. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Bolabo, for that wonderful presentation you did. Before Dr. Alberto come on stage, Dr. Alberto, before you come on stage, please permit me, I want Solo Kabani to just do a brief introduction. I want him to introduce you briefly before you come up stage. Yeah, so in a moment you'll be introduced. So over to you, Solo. Solo, hi.
Yeah, and I just, I'd love to introduce Dr. Wilson, but before that, just to really remind everyone that, in terms of what Bolab was speaking about, at the end of the day, what we're really focused on is peace of mind for business owners, peace of mind for leadership teams, peace of mind in terms of not responding to cyber threats from a place of fear or from a place of crossing your fingers and hoping that your business doesn't get targeted, but really putting facts and information in the hands of business owners and business runners and decision makers, such that you have a more factual, more intelligent understanding of what is happening at your API gateways, of what your threats are, and how you can best manage that, right? So we've got Dr. Wilson Alberto Torres, who is not only leads our tech and engineering efforts, but he's also the man who, he looks after our systems and at the same time works on the product. So I feel he's the most he's the most qualified person to take complicated matter and make it sound simple, and to also kind of walk you through the how. So obviously with what we're offering at Oculus is API security, privacy, and then visibility. And if you think from a business perspective, if you walk away from the functionalities that we have and you really focus on what the goal is here, the goal is to be able to, if you're using APIs, you yourself and your leadership team know how critical they are to your organization. You yourself and your leadership team know exactly how sensitive the data coming through is and isn't. And you and your team know exactly what would happen if that API stopped working or was compromised or was breached, right? So just for an example, I think it was about 2-3 months ago, we were talking to a client, and while we were talking to them, I think they were a little bit, they were taking their sweet time. And in that time, they managed to get hacked and breached and had to pay out 40,000 Australian dollars, which is very close to 12 million Naira, right? So these are the kind of things that if you are an up-and-coming business or you're a business that's been established in this kind of environment, we really can't afford those kind of breaches and those kind of expenditures that have no return in terms of what the business is trying to achieve. But without further ado, I'll introduce Dr. Alberto Torres. He hails from Colombia, but works out here in Australia with us. He is a man with a PhD in cryptography, and he also does our AI algorithms. So a very smart and intelligent man, very humble, very knowledgeable. So any questions you have at the end as well, technical, business, or otherwise, feel free to throw it in. But Wilson, I'll let you briefly introduce yourself and then maybe get to your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Solo. Thank you, Golabo, for this time, for this opportunity as well. As Solo just mentioned, so I'm looking after the tech and the engineering part of the Oculus product. It's an intelligent product that protects APIs. So this presentation is basically to discuss the background that Golabo just discussed, and also to point out the problem, and also to demonstrate how our solution provides security, visibility, and privacy. Sorry, I'm gonna ask you, Golabo, can you see my full presentation?
Yes.
Full screen, right?
Yes, we can. We can see your screen. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna start by illustrating the outline of my presentation. So quick background, just to connect to the previous presentation of Golabo. I will point out the problem, what specific security issues are we addressing with our solution. I'm going to discuss what are the traditional approaches and perhaps what are the gaps. And then I will explain the solution that we are proposing. Then we explain what are the deployment models that we have at this particular moment, and how we install or deploy our solution into our customers' environment. And then we just conclude this presentation with a Q&A session. Okay, so given the relevance and the importance of APIs as the previous session, so we can see that APIs are pervasive. So it's nowadays in every application we use. Important that is heavily used in the financial sector, digital platforms, and also governments. So they promote or encourage the use of IoTs, and heavily in the building blocks of those technologies are APIs. Another situation that has encouraged the use of APIs are the current pandemic situation. So a lot of transactions, a lot of sessions and communication have been increasing the last 1-2 years, and that explains the statistics in terms of attacks that Golabo presented earlier. So what are the main problems? So it seems that the current controls that are available to protect the APIs are not enough. So what's happening in the current digital tools? So there are API gateways and also web application firewalls, two controls that are oriented to monitor and secure the web traffic. It turns out that it's not 100% secure, and because of that situation, so we see a lot of cyber attacks and a lot of data breaches reported by the news. Another aspect of those controls is that they are rule-based, which means that you need to have a security analyst maintaining those rules or fine-tuning those rules to cope with the number of security vulnerabilities that are reported. Another situation is the authentication bypass. So that's quite important, because even if you rely your security in some security tokens or authentication, so there's a situation when the adversary managed to steal those tokens and those authentication measurements, and they can get into the system, which means that those security controls that are based on rules are not enough. So clearly we can see the gaps, and as a result, we try to propose a strategy that we call defense in depth, which is add another layer into the stack that are there to protect the APIs. As I mentioned earlier, rules are not active, and it's very hard to maintain, right? So you need to keep your team working on and fine-tuning the rules to cope with the number of vulnerabilities. And we require an additional control to detect the authentication bypass. So in this diagram, I explained the strategy of defense in depth. So commonly in, like, let's say on premises infrastructure, so even in cloud, so there's the first control that is the network firewalls. This one is more into the network level protection. In terms of the web controls, we saw the web application firewalls. So this one are there to screen APIs, but since they are rule-based, they don't learn about new patterns that customers are using, and they don't learn patterns that perhaps malicious parties are using. API gateways add certain level of security to APIs, but those security controls are oriented for authorization and authentication, which is not enough. And that's why we keep listening to news about security breaches and security attacks. What we propose here is to add an intelligence. So, which means we have a model that try to learn about the API calls and try to learn about the user behavior patterns. So which means that given certain historical data, so we are going to learn about how that API on that particular use case works. And then we set the thresholds such when this control is listening to production API calls, it's going to be easy to detect when the control triggers any anomalies. So how this thing works, how the intelligence works in our product. So let's say, as any machine learning model or intelligence model, we need data, we need historical data. So historical data will tell us, in this case, a number of API calls that have happened in a particular time frame. So we are able to analyze structured and unstructured data. So from our customers, we are able to receive relational databases, semi-structured databases such as MongoDB, or unstructured data such as traffic logs or web application logs. From those historical data, we start performing some analysis to understand those patterns. So we run different type of statistical analysis. We are capable of analyzing continuous and discrete variables in order to understand those patterns. Based on those patterns, we are able to model those behaviors or those common patterns, and we use a range of different algorithms within the machine learning area. So we use supervised and supervised models to pattern those models. And then once we select the best model in terms of performance and accuracy, we just plug that model into our backend solution, and then it's ready to listen to like production API calls. So let's see, for example, in this diagram, so a customer with their application is calling their API endpoint, and then we are able to sit in line or in parallel of that API endpoint. And based on that model that we already created, based on the good patterns of that particular endpoint, we are able to anticipate sophisticated API threats, which means that we are also able to prevent significant API breaches and data breaches that, as we just saw previously, it can cause a lot to companies in terms of financial and reputational aspects. So what are the common cases that we deal with our customers? So we have two specific use cases. One is external, and we call it north-south, which means that the endpoint is communicated to the world, to the internet. We can say, like, in here we comprise the B2C and B2B, and then this solution is capable of protecting the API endpoint from API application bypass, token abuse, and API payload injection. On the other hand, we have the east-west. It's like internal API traffic. So we have found in some of our experience that some companies are not aware of keeping a quite well inventory of the APIs endpoints, and they lost the visibility. So in that case, we are capable of going to their environment, understanding how many API endpoints are there, what are the most active API endpoints, protect them. And also we found out that among the internal traffic, there are something called misuse APIs that sometimes is very hard to detect with traditional security controls. Now with the intelligence level that we add to our product, we are capable to understand and to detect this API misuse in advance. So what are the deployment options that we are having at the moment? So we are in Amazon AWS. So all the platform that supports our product runs in this technology, and we are also able to deploy the product in a automated basis, which means that we only need the customer's AWS account, and we are able to deploy our solution in perhaps less than an hour. We are also able to deploy the solution on premises. So we can create a box, either that can be using Microsoft Hyper-V or VMware. And from there, so we can start screening APIs from any customer that decide or prefer to use this option. What are the current customers are among the financial sector? So we have one customer who is a fintech. So we analyze, monitor their API endpoints. We have another company in the payment system, and we have another company in related to the payment gateways. So these companies are based on Singapore and Australia. So partnerships. So we have a partnership with AWS. iTalk is supporting our platform, and we are in the process of certifying our product with ISO 27001, which gives a certain assurance that our product follows the best security practices when we are developing, when we are managing, and when we are deploying our solution in our customers' environment. And finally, we are listed in AWS Marketplace, so which is a good class for our product. So thanks for listening, and well, I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
All right, thanks a lot, Dr. Alberto. I think there are some questions on the chat section. Okay, so we have a quick one. The first one is, says, hello Wilson, I already have a WAF, a web application firewall. Can I use that to protect my APIs? So like, why look at other security controls? Can't I use my existing security controls to protect my APIs?
Yeah, well, web application firewalls are there as a security controls. They work, but the limitation is that they are rule-based. And let's say that adversaries, well, are evolving in terms of tactics, techniques, and procedures. So they are using new strategies, new skills, and every time there's a new vulnerability or new reported cyber attacks, so you need to go back to your firewall and you need to create the new rules to prevent like those situations from happening in your network, right? So my answer is yeah. So you can still use your web application firewall, but you are still exposed to certain threats, right? What we can offer in that solution is that we are this level of intelligence, which means that we tackle the problem differently. We try to learn new patterns by the use of cutting-edge technology such as machine learning and deep learning, and then we just pattern and model those behaviors. So then we will be able to anticipate potential new cyber attacks within the organization.
Okay, I hope that answers the question for her. Okay, so there's another question. It says, hi Wilson, is there a way that this new layer of security might anticipate upcoming API developments? Will a standard ICO loss model be sufficient for new developed APIs?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. So, well, our solution doesn't analyze the development part of the APIs because there are heaps of applications that are working on that part. So, and they are mainly to analyzing how you are coding your API. So our solution is basically analyzing the API calls, how the API calls are going through the company, or how many API calls are coming to my endpoint, how the users are using my API endpoints. If the authorized users are using my endpoints, are they misusing my API endpoints? So I think those questions are answered by the use of our solution or proposal. So in terms of the question, as I said, yeah, so I understand there are different tools that in terms of development, they analyze the coding of the API. And they use, some of them, they use machine learning and artificial intelligence.
Yeah, and if I could just add on to what Wilson said, I think what Wilson said is spot on. So on one hand, you can have a reactive approach where you constantly have to update your rules, understand the latest threat signatures, kind of like opening your old Windows computer and your antivirus starts running for an hour to come up to speed. Or the approach that we take is we understand what's happening at your API gateway. We understand what is acceptable and what is not. And therefore, anything that is not acceptable, we risk rate as an anomaly. So in that regard, all we need to do is really understand what you intend your API gateway to be used for, right? And then anything that falls outside of that. So if a hacker engineers a new innovative way, or they find a new way to do things, you're still protected because we understand and we're able to help ensure that your API gateway is only being used for what you intended it for it to be used for. So the other thing that I would say there is some of the work that Dr. Alberto Torres was doing with Sleek. One of the things they said to us is it was the first time they could actually baseline the API calls. And it was the first time that they could actually look into the seasonality and the patterns and really start to understand what is going on at their gateway. So there's security, but then as we saw in Wilson's presentation, there's also the issue of visibility. Do you actually understand consumer or customer behavior at your gateway? And then the thirdly is privacy. So if you run everything through a WAF, all your data is going through there. And as a third-party provider, we believe that as users, you should have the option to decide whether you want to conceal certain things from us or you're happy to share those things. So just to add on to what Wilson said, you can use any tool you want and meet compliance needs, but the question is, what is the most effective way for you to secure that API gateway? And what is something that will actually give you the peace of mind such that you can actually focus on what you're good at, right? Which when you start a business or when you're in a startup, it's a bit hard because you have to be good at everything. So to Wilson's point, you can use a WAF. It'll do what's on the tin, hopefully, if they haven't misrepresented it. But just understanding what you're paying for, what you're getting, and what risk you're happy to assume to take on by going that option.
Thank you, Solo. Okay, so there's another question. So it says, can this service plug in with other security solutions, like with a WAF? Like what other integrations do you have integrations with other security controls which existing? Do you have experience with that? Do you have it is it part of your solution design? Would you be able to integrate with other security solutions?
Well, we have in the pipeline to integrate our solution with SIEMs and also with API gateways. We believe that in the first quarter of 2022, we are there to do the integration with those tools.
Hi, doctor. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Okay, so without creating rules. Okay, another question. Without creating rules, what are the out-of-box controls?
Yeah, well, I try to understand is what is the difference between creating rules and this. I mean, the fact that we are using machine learning and deep learning to learn like patterns of the API calls and user behavior. Is that okay? So yeah, well, so what is I mean, again, the advantages of using machine learning? So we rely on this is basically a cutting edge technology is used across different sectors and industries and fields, right? And it has a lot of application and is also widely used in different cybersecurity tools. In terms of APIs, as we presented, so we try to learn good patterns, right? And those patterns are learned by some algorithms that we model those algorithms with well-known libraries such as sklearn or even Amazon SageMaker provides some of the algorithms that we can use to model those patterns. And then when we plug this one in production, they start screening new API calls. And since the model already learned those patterns, it's easy for the model to understand which API call fits in those patterns and which API calls are not fitting in those patterns, so they can trigger an alert. So we don't say that 100% these alerts are cyber attacks, right? But are some anomalies, right? That security analysts from that particular company should look and should understand why this anomaly is happening. It could be a new way the business is performing their API endpoints, or in fact, it could be a cyber attack that, well, it is a trigger that is anticipating that something with abnormal behavior is happening.
Okay, all right, thank you for that. Okay, so there's this question I think is quite interesting, especially with your experience in cryptography. So it says, from a developer's perspective, what are the things to consider for secure API deployment, which is beyond the control now, secure API deployment?
Yeah, the deployment. Yeah, well, I think mainly to follow the best practices. So, for example, we are going to deploy the API in a new organization. We need to make sure that all the communication, all the infrastructure that is there to deploy the endpoint is secure. In our case, so we use, for example, in the case of Amazon AWS, we use a fully automatic solution, and this solution relies on the security that Amazon AWS provides. So all the communication is encrypted, and also the information that is stored in the cloud is also provide a level of encryption. So that's how we manage the security in terms of confidentiality when we deploy our solution into the customer's account.
Okay, so there's a last question. So we'll probably take the last question. It's a bit of a cheesy one. So it says, I'm a finance person who is asked for security votes a lot. So this person is probably here to see the kind of solutions or tools is tech people will subscribe to. So from a cost savings point of view, does this tool replace any other information security tool obtainable in the market? Or does it perform complementary roles? So are there security controls that the API security solution, Oculus, for example, can replace, or it would always complement existing security controls?
Yeah, it complements, as as I presented, is another layer of security. And yeah, well, it adds certain costs in the strategy to protect your API ecosystem. But at the same time, it prevents organization from having any financial costs due to any data breach, right? Or any reputational aspects due to any cybersecurity incident.
Okay. So another interesting question, hopefully this might be the last one. What makes Oculus stand out against other competing solutions? What's the differentiator? What makes you different, or what makes Oculus, that solution that should be leveraged?
Yeah, I think we stand up because we are an innovative organization. We are looking for improving all the time our solution. We need to permanently research and try to understand which algorithms within the intelligence are better to be used to plug into our solution. We are privacy by design, which means that we are not at any point of our development or deployment process, we are not touching any personal information of our customers. And if we find any personal information there, we immediately recommend the adequate solution to protect that information in terms of confidentiality. We have been getting a lot of awards in Singapore for being an innovative tech company, and in Australia, and that's why we are standing up.
And if I could just add to that from a business sense as well, I would say if you were to look at companies that are doing specifically what we're doing, which is using AI beyond the gateway, I would further say we have the ability to deploy cloud and on-prem. But overall, the two competitors that I would even think about are based in the US. They're very US centric. We are based out in Australia. We have operations in Singapore, but we've also, we've decidedly, given our team is quite international itself, we've decidedly to really focus on serving the areas that are unaddressed, right? So I think you'll find everything from where we price to how we approach to how we do our customer service. We're really focused on ensuring that anyone that relies on APIs can be protected, can have the peace of mind. So I would say that's another differentiator in addition to what everything Milton has said.
All right, thank you, Solo. Thank you, Dr. Wilson. Okay, maybe we should take one more question. So Dr. Wilson, what factors help inform your decision on which style of web service architecture, SOAP or REST, to use while developing APIs securely?
Well, I have experience using both technologies, and I think. Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm sure we can hear you.
Yeah, I think. Both technologies are supported by good security controls. In terms of SOAP, so I understand that there are some XML architecture that provides certain level of security by the use of cryptography. In the terms of REST, again, so all the development that is behind the API endpoints should follow, in my opinion, the best practices. And also, when developing APIs by the use of SOAP or REST, is to my understanding that nowadays there are some tools that help developers to cross-check their coding and anticipating any vulnerabilities. I think that those tools are very important. But once you develop your API solution and you are implementing or deploying the solution with your customers. So we are here to help you to protect your API.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. I think we are done with questions. So I think we'll throw it back to Sita to help us close out. Thanks a lot, Dr. Wilson and Solo, for coming through. So Sita, over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Bolawo. Dr. Wilson, Alberto. I love your name, Alberto. Dr. Wilson, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate everyone that is on this call. To my colleague Bolabo, thank you for that wonderful presentation also. And more importantly, to our customers and guests that are on this call, we want to say thank you for joining us in this call. We deeply, deeply appreciate your time. And we believe you learned some things in the course of this conversation. Now, to take it further, we know that all you did was you heard the theoretical aspect of how the solution works. Sorry, can anybody hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Nice and clear.
Awesome. Yeah, so we know that you heard us and you've seen a lot of value and you feel that the solution is going to add value to your organization. So we want to take it a step further beyond just that. And what we are saying is this, that please feel free to send a message to us at info@esentry.com, or you can feel free to drop your email at the chat, or you can send us an email if you have our email address. My email, for instance, is osita@esentry.xyz. So please feel free to send us an email. And once you send us an email, we are going to have a personal presentation with people in your organization to show you how this would suit the uniqueness of your organization and give you the business value that your management would want to get. So we are free to run a presentation for you. We're also free to do a POC for you based on your business requirements. And when is the best time for you to start asking for this? I would say the best time is now. So please feel free to reach out to us and we'll be glad, so much glad to give you more information on that. Yeah, you can see the email address at the chat box. So please send an email to us and we'll get back to you immediately on how we can be of value to you when it comes to your API security. Once again, thank you for joining this call. Is my friend here, Solo Kobani? Are you here?
I am, sir. Yep.
Yeah, thank you so much. And it was a pleasure having a conversation with you today.
Thank you very much for hosting, and then to everyone in attendance. If you want a demo, be sure to reach out to our partners at Esentry. They'll be able to coordinate that for you and your organization. And also, yeah, they're the people to speak to on all things to do with Oculus, where you are and with what you need. We're here to help. And I think there's also a case study that we've done with a fintech in Singapore that we can share and circulate. I think, well, I think that'll be with Blessing, but there's a copy that we can circulate afterwards.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Solo. Thank you, Solo Kobani. Thank you, everyone. Do have an amazing day. And like we rightly said, please feel free to reach us on the email address and the chat box, or you can actually go to info@esentry.xyz. We'll be glad to give you more information. Do have an amazing day and stay blessed. Thank you.
Thank you.